And here we are again. Hey everybody, welcome back to Office Hours with the Professor, the show where I say things. Today we're going to do a very basic outline of the shamanistic belief system of the Ket people. And this is one of the most important aspects of Ket culture, but on the other hand, one of the most mysterious. We know very little about Ket Shamanism, especially as it existed prior to the arrival of the Russians in the 17th century. So let's write this down. Ket Shamanism. Now, peoples from all over Siberia have historically been shamanists. Now, what is a shamanist? Maybe we know this word shaman, right? Well, that is, or shaman, or shaman, or there are a few pronunciations. That is, they believe that shamanists believe that particular people, i.e. shamans, these people have the ability to interact with the spirit world and could act as representatives of the community there too. Okay, so that doesn't necessarily make the shaman better than anyone else, just different. Okay, so shaman and spirit world. Again, this didn't mean the shaman was better than anybody, just different. And, you know, I like to think of the Muggle wizard distinction from Harry Potter, right? Well, anyway, despite their vital role in the community, shamans weren't always the most popular people. In fact, shamans had always been treated with some degree of, let's say, fearful reverence. Fearful reverence for shamans.
Scary hours, no money out. Smash the Guinness stout, play the outfield. Lucille switch cracks on chill. She's a rich.
Hey guys, just a quick aside. I'm doing the editing for this video right now in my awesome bedroom, but I just wanted to talk about one thing that I forgot to mention in the video, and that is the shaman's illness. This was a kind of mental illness that was coming upon a new shaman during this person's late teens or early 20s when their shamanic powers first emerged and they first began to perceive the spirits. Okay, so the spirits would lead this person into a kind of a mental offness, a mental illness, and they would go off into the forest and begin to learn to interact with the spirits. And during this time, the shaman, while experiencing the shaman's illness, would have to choose his or her shaman's path, okay, the shaman path for this one particular person. And if you refuse to listen to the spirits and you did not choose the right shaman's path, you could even go crazy or you might even die. Okay, so the shaman's illness is something really important to keep in mind. And once they had gotten over their shaman's illness, they would rejoin the society to become this vital, but again, fearfully revered member of the community. All right, they could be kind of dangerous, guys. And it was a position that we have really no parallel to in our society, and one that I at least kind of struggle to understand. Now, these shamans, as I say, had the special ability to interact with the spirit world by going into a trance, and usually such a state was brought on by singing and banging a drum, and sometimes they would eat these hallucinogenic mushrooms in order to help achieve this state, okay? Among the Ket, both men and women could become shamans, although, at least in the 20th century, the most powerful shamans were men. We don't know if that had always been the case, but in the 20th century, the most powerful shamans were all men. And male shamans were known by the word sening. Okay, so here's the Ket word, sening, meaning a male shaman or just a shaman in general. And if it was a woman shaman, it would have been a senam. Okay, senam is a woman shaman. And notice here we have the word am, meaning mother, right? And so shamans, they didn't make up a single homogeneous group. There were different types of shaman as well as, and there was also this kind of earth sorcerer called, they called him bangos, or literally the earthy one. All right, and so these different kinds of shamans, they could belong to a few different classes depending on their animal helper. So let's write it down. So here are some shaman classes, okay? One of the shaman classes, we have bear. One of the other shaman classes is eagle. Reindeer. Okay. Dragonfly. And anthropomorphic bear man. So we had bear shamans, eagle shamans, reindeer shamans, dragonfly shamans, and anthropomorphic bear man shamans, okay? And this last category is cool because their helper was literally this guy who had bear paws instead of hands. And he was known among the shaman, or the Ket, as Kandaluk. We don't know much about Kandaluks, but they were these mythical guys with bare hands who existed and helped the shamans, and that's about all we know about these guys. But my guess is that America's founding fathers were Ket scholars too, since after all they put in the Constitution the right to bear arms. Sorry. Anyway, different shaman classes had lots of different strengths and weaknesses, right? So, for example, dragonfly shamans, they were the strongest, okay? Dragonfly shamans were super strong, but on the other hand, they had a weakness. They could only shamanize in the summer. That is when dragonflies were around. And their other weakness is that they could only travel southwest in their spiritual journeys. So first weakness, they can only shamanize in the summer. And second weakness, when they go on their spiritual journey, they can only go southwest. So that was kind of a bother because the main Ket adversary, remember the soul-eating witch, Hosedam, she lived to the north. So the dragonfly shaman had this problem. On the other hand, bear and Kandaluk shamans, they couldn't fly. So their weakness is they can't fly, but they can call on not only their own spirit helpers, but the family's guardian spirits too, called Allel. So they can also summon family guardians. So basically what they have is they have a more varied cast of helpers that they can consult. But on the other hand, again, they can't fly. They're limited to the earth. And also, we have the eagle shamans, okay? And their strength is that they have the oldest and most venerable traditions, and they got to be associated with this badass ancient eagle that was, or this old giant eagle that was bigger than the sun. And they were the heirs of this old eagle tradition of the very first shaman who was either associated with eagles or was himself an eagle, okay? So they're the most venerable, and they get to have kind of the power of the sun a little bit. All right, the eagle associated with the sun. And their weakness, of course, is that they weren't as strong as dragonflies. So they're weaker than dragonfly. Okay. Now, but remember, they did get to go to the north, which the dragonfly shaman could not do. Reindeer shamans, on the other hand, they were the most common. Okay. And in their seances, so their strength was numbers, right? So most shamans appear to have been reindeer shamans, and in their seances, their drums would turn into these flying female reindeer, and the name of the flying female reindeer was Kaduks. So they would be beating on their drum, and the reindeer or the drum would turn into this female reindeer called a Kaduks, and the shaman would get up on its back and ride up into the sky. And there they would have these epic battles against Hosedam and her army of demons. So kind of like Santa, but infinitely cooler, right?
Hey, yo, I roll like a bat out of hell. Evil acapels fly, spitting out of my grill. Before it hit the sky with springtime colors.
So of these 5 types, we had also 3 categories of shaman. There were like lesser shamans, normal, everyday, fully qualified shamans, and great shamans, okay? And so basically we had different levels of shamanic strength that you could have. There were 7 levels in all, more or less, but there were 3 main categories. So we had the great shaman on top. And the lesser shaman. And then we just have shamans. Normal, everyday shamans. And this is what most of the shamans really made it to. Very few shamans actually made it to great shamanhood, right? But there were 7 levels, and the lesser shamans were these guys who had just gotten out of their shaman's illness and rejoined the society. They didn't have drums, but they did have a drumstick made of rotten wood, kind of semi-rotten wood that was just a temporary drumstick, okay? And they would bang on their shins, not in a painful way, but they would just tap their shins while they shamanized instead of striking a drum. When you leveled up high enough to get a drum, you were just a normal shaman. You were a fully qualified shaman. On the other hand, relatively few shamans ended up becoming the great shamans. They're the really powerful guys who you don't want to mess with, right? Now, I would have loved to sit in on one of these shamanic seances, and it would be really cool to see what it was like, but I can't do that, and not because it's some kind of secretive thing, but simply because there are no more shamans left to observe. The last Ket shaman died in the 70s, and with his death, this tradition was brought to an end. And given the persecution and the eradication of traditional lore by the USSR in the 20th century, it seems not particularly likely that there will be a comeback, but of course possible. Among the Buryat people of South Siberia, for instance, shamanism has made a comeback. But all we have now are fragments of the traditional beliefs practiced by the Ket, and even these are fading fast. So other groups, once again, their shamanic traditions have revitalized, but really we don't know if Ket shamanism can come back right now. It might, but then again, it's not being practiced now. Now, the fate of Ket Shamanism sends this sobering message to Western academia, not only about the importance of documenting indigenous spiritual traditions, but also of simply respecting them. Had it not been for the ravages of this forced assimilation during the 20th century, this tradition from Ket prehistory might still live on today. It's possible anyway. So that's my talk about Ket Shamanism. I hope you learned a few things, and everyone take it easy, and I will see everyone next time. Bye, guys.
Lives, they die younger in this new world. The order slaughter men, women, and children. 10 feet gates surround the building, keep us sealed in. The project, life was like a Vietnam vet. Constant war, sever threats of enemy conquest. Crooked cops call my building complex, that's in the rumble. Streets are like a jungle, can't let my cipher crumble. Vivid thoughts, devils resort to trick knowledge.